Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I call our May 29, 2024 York City Council Committee meeting to order. We are discussing this evening committee issues for June 4th, 2024 legislative agenda. Coming up first, we have our general items. And up first, we have for open for discussion, tax exoneration request from the Children's Aid Society. I don't know, we have representation here from the Children's Aid Society? Yes, sir. Would you mind standing at the podium and sharing with us your name?
Sure. My name is Eric Chase, and I'm the president and CEO of the Children's Aid Society.
Okay.
And we're just asking for a request for tax exoneration from the city on our property at 636 Poplar Street, where we're building our new facility, the new Layman Center. It's actually under construction right now, and this is the last tax identity to forgive taxes. The county has done that. The school board has done that. The state has done that. So this is the last one we're standing in front of that is asking for taxes in 2023 when the property was transferred to us from Calvary United Methodist Church. Okay. We're a 501c3 nonprofit and religiously affiliated with the Church of the Brethren also. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Are there any comments or questions from council?
Yes, I'm just a little confused. So was there a problem with the paperwork with the city that you paid property taxes? That we didn't receive any information about this.
Oh, I'm sorry. What happened is when the county's procedure now, when the property is transferred from one entity to another, they assume it is taxable, and they moved it from a non-tax status with the church to a taxable parking lot. We went before them a year and a half ago to show them what we were going to do with it, that we're building a child care center, we're expanding our crisis nursery, we're expanding our counseling services within the city, and then they forgave it. But because it's already into 2024, when the forgiveness is given, you have to go back to each entity and ask for forgiveness for the previous year's taxes because of the way they do that. Unfortunately, we transferred a second property in January of last year and probably will be back before you in another year asking for that same thing, because when it transferred from being a group home to an apartment building, which is still being used as a group home. So this is just the county's process of how they move property from, my understanding, from tax exempt to taxable, and then the burden lies on the agency or organization who is tax exempt to prove they're tax exempt and go back to each governing body to request that exoneration.
Okay, I just have one more question. Now, did you receive or apply for any of the ARPA funds for income loss?
We did at one point. We weren't granted them in the first round, and in the second round, we did not apply.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from council regarding this?
So this property, and I don't know, this property has never been on the tax rolls?
It has not for several years.
Okay.
It was previously owned by St. Paul's United Methodist Church and then transferred to Calvary United Methodist Church, which was also a non-tax entity.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from council?
None.
No, thank you.
Any comments or questions for the public regarding this matter? Okay. Is there a motion to place this on the June 4th, 2024 legislative agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Then that moves forward to be placed on our June 4th, 2024 legislative agenda. The next item up for discussion is a resolution regarding the adoption and implementation of the city's emergency operations plan. Do we have anyone representing the city? Thank you, sir.
I'm Chris Grove. I am the Deputy Emergency Management Planner for the City of York. And what I'm presenting is the city's emergency operation plan. By law, every municipality in the state of Pennsylvania is supposed to have one of these. And basically what we're doing is we're just updating the one that we've currently had. And basically the emergency operation plan is a generalized plan, how the city would react in an emergency. And specifically what they mostly do is in the plan, it details what entities within the government and outside partners would do what. So if there would be a large fire, the fire department would take care of that, and so forth and so on. The big change with the emergency operation plan is that the The entities that do the emergency work, they're grouped in a new concept called lifelines. It's a FEMA term, and I'll read you the definition that FEMA has put. A lifeline are the most fundamental services in the community that, when stabilized, enable all other aspects of society to function. So basically, it groups the fire service, the police as security, so forth and so on. Many of these lifelines are done within the city government, but not all of them. A couple examples would be that our ambulance service is a private company, so that's not a city government part, as well as our utilities and also like our transportation system.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any comments or questions from council regarding this?
No.
Any comments or questions from the public regarding this? Thank you.
Okay.
Is there a motion to place this on the June 4th, 2024 legislative agenda?
I'll move to.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? And that item will be placed on our June 4th, 2024 legislative agenda. Moving along, we have our Public Works, and I will hand that over to Councilwoman Dennis.
Good evening. Next, we have a resolution authorizing an agreement with General Recreation for Renaissance Park. Is there anyone here to represent that?
Yes, ma'am, I'll take care of this. Good evening, council. What you have before you tonight is an agreement for new park equipment at Renaissance Park. So I'll read a statement from Tom Landis, who's superintendent of the parks. He's taking care of this project. So we're installing new playground equipment in Renaissance Park to replace the broken equipment currently in there. The space nets were taken out last year due to vandals cutting all the netting. Current play structure has most of the pieces broken on it. Spring toys have all been destroyed and removed. What is remaining in the park doesn't provide any recreational opportunity for the neighborhood kids. So what we're going to do in your proposal, if you look at that, it shows the new park structures. So it's going to give the kids like a globe-style merry-go-round. So you know, us old folks remember the actual merry-go-round. So this is an actual enclosed merry-go-round. So it'll spin in circles, but the way it's designed, the kids can't actually fly off of it or fly out of it like we were used to when I was little.
Where's the fun in that?
That takes all the fun out.
Gotta fly off a couple of times.
That was my exact answer to Tom when he told me about it. I mean, what fun
They
is
don't get
that?
the experience.
So the other part is a two-tiered climbing structure. So it's sort of enclosed like a shade roof and structure with a slide and some monkey bars and some spring toys. And then a few spring toys will be added throughout the park. You know, when I say spring toys, I'm talking about the riding spring back and forth. So it'll be a nice upgrade to that park. We're trying to figure out when it was actually built. We're thinking it's in the 17 to 18 year range that the park was actually put in. So none of the equipment has been replaced or anything since then. That's your proposal in front of you for that.
All right, is there any comments from council?
I have a question. Is is the 71,000 mentioned in the resolution the full amount to do this upgrade, or are there extra costs?
If there's extra costs to be minor things, because the park structure will be installed by the park's employees. So similar to the BOP program, you're familiar with the BOP program? So we budgeted last year, or we budgeted this year to purchase the equipment, and then we'll do the install in-house. So most of the concrete will probably be donated. We usually Tom winds up with the stone and any backfill being donated. So that would be the only cost that isn't in this, is if we can't get that donated, which, knock on wood, that has never been a problem. One of the contracting companies usually steps up and donates all the concrete and footers.
And
If I
then-
can, I'm sorry, I was just going to say that this was officially a request in the FY '24, but hello, by the way, I apologize for my tardiness. This was an actual request into the FY '24 budget, specifically a total of $90,000 coming out of the Recreation Fund in the Parks and Recreation Department under Park Maintenance specifically for fixing Renaissance Park. So there is a possibility, I'm not sure if the play surface is included in this or not, but that would be from a different vendor, and that contract would be below the limit in terms of what needs to come to council. So this one's to you because it's over the $69,000 that's determined for the year.
And for right now, the plan for, she's talking poured in place, the rubber structure, we're gonna forego that price was between $25,000 and $30,000. So we didn't have the budget for that, so right now we're gonna do wood carpet mulch. And then eventually budget to do a poured in place. So we'll wind up with the rubber structure, which is much safer than anything else. We just couldn't budget it right now.
Anyone else from council?
I just have a comment. I look forward to this park being renovated. I just want to encourage everyone in our Public Works Department, more so our Parks and Rec Department, that when purchasing our play equipment, to ensure that we have equipment that's inclusive, that's for all children with all abilities to have the opportunity to play on our equipment. I know sometimes it can be a little pricier, but there's also certain apparatuses and things that if we think a little uniquely or creatively, it won't be. So just to ensure that we have something so that all of our children can.
Exactly, and that's when Renaissance Park was originally built, that wasn't a consideration, even for the standards back then. It was done it wasn't done in-house. We didn't pick it. It was a contractor outside had done it, and the equipment that they bought wasn't really ADA compliant. It wasn't like structurally built for a public park. It was made more for like maybe home, a step above a home park, but and that's just why it didn't hold up. Now, hopefully what we purchase now will hold up, 25 years or better. Depends on the vandals. I'm a realist. I know they exist, so.
Well, thank you.
Yep, sure thing.
Anyone else from council? Do we have any public comments? All right. With that being said, we're gonna go and move to a motion to move this resolution to the June 4th agenda. So is there a motion to move that?
I'll move. I'll second then.
All right, so it's been moved and it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Dennis.
You're welcome.
Moving along to our police. Up next, we have a resolution authorizing an agreement with Wireless CCTV LLC, and we have Captain Lewis here with us today.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This resolution, as you're aware, is to purchase 3 security towers that'll be used mainly for our hotspots, and then primarily for large community events. So we have block parties and things like that we can set up and just have recorded security.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council regarding this? Any questions from the public regarding this? Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Brian Gooden. My question is, where exactly are we considering the hot spots?
Yeah, so it's really just dependent upon what's kind of going on, right? So I'll use an example. Our downtown community was recently been really terrorized by graffiti artists. And so not all the businesses can kind of capture this surveillance, the foot traffic, if you will. So we can look at our crime map and then strategically place these surveillance towers. So they're on a trailer, they're very large, and they're telescopic, so we can send them 20 feet, at least 20 feet in the air. And so, you know, using our technologies like our crime maps, we can strategically place them, you know, capture some information, some data, you know, and then when we solve that problem, then we can relocate them to another area. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so mobile.
Yeah, it's mobile. It's not fixed. It's going to be a large trailer. It's going to have our patch on it. I think it even has a flashing light on it. So, I mean, people are going to know where it's at.
And you will be moving them around where you guys see fit. It won't be nowhere stationary.
It will not be stationary, correct. Yeah. So, however long it takes us to tackle that problem at hand is how long it will be.
No.
I have a question, Captain Lynch. Would you expect them to all three be in the same area around the same time, or would you plan to deploy them across the city, or?
It depends. So, like, if we have a large event, like let's say, you know, New Year's Eve, right? We have a ton of foot traffic in the downtown square, and you know, we'll probably strategically place all three of them in the downtown area just to kind of capture everything. But when we don't have a large event going on, if we know we have a lot of like shootings or burglaries or something out in the West End, we might put one or two out there, depending on. Really, it depends on what the crime map shows us. If it's kind of concentrated, you know, it just really depends. I don't know how to exactly answer it, but ideally we'd like to keep them kind of spread out. But
Will you keep them on all the time, and where will you, like, will they ever be down, or will they be always on, or maybe a mixture of?
yeah, I mean, it could be a mixture. They're solar powered,
Okay.
so they will have a big solar panel to it. So there might be some periods of time where we have to take it down if we inclement weather and things like that, yeah.
Are you guys going to do we have a policy? Like, does the police department have some sort of written policy for its use, or is that in the works?
We don't have a policy for it, but this is more of an overt camera system, right?
Okay.
You know, we do use cameras, surveillance systems now that's covert, where nobody knows where they're at, they're hidden. This is more of kind of being just a deterrent to the public, you know, to any criminals that are out there.
So it's really sort of like having a police officer just stationed somewhere and watching.
Like, have you
in
ever
effect,
been
right?
have you ever been to like the Giant, like out east?
Yes.
And you know how they have that large?
Yes.
That's exactly what this is.
And Sherman Street, the gas station had one.
7-Eleven, yep.
Just like that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Thank you.
So do you have any main focuses of what you're focusing on?
It really just kind of depends on what our data's telling us. So every Monday, we have a staff meeting and we look at our crime. We look at what crime occurred in the last 7 days, the last 28 days. And so it really just depends. I can tell you, over the last 2 weeks, we've been really plagued by burglaries. We had approximately 20 different convenience store burglaries. I am proud to say that our detectives did phenomenal work and arrested the one individual that was responsible for all 20.
Wow.
And so kudos to them. But again, this is where a tool like this would have kind of come in handy. So we wouldn't have to necessarily pay detectives overtime to come in and do surveillance. We could set up the tower, capture what we're looking for, and then relocate it to the next problem.
So when you originally looked into the towers, being able to get the towers, right? Was there a main focus, I guess what I'm asking, when you guys initially wanted to go with this direction? Was there a main focus? Was it the homicides? What was it? What drew the attention to getting these devices?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to answer. It really kind of depends on what's really plaguing the community. You know, we're very connected to the community. We want to know what's bothering, what issues. It could be as simple as I know it sounds ridiculous, but a frequent complaint that we get is one particular area of the city, somebody keeps urinating in the alleyway. And it's like, how do we maybe combat that? You know, maybe throw that out there to kind of say, hey, you know.
And I guess what I'm asking is, what was the more serious reason?
Well, it's always going to be our gun violence. It's always going to be our gun
And
violence.
so that's where I'm going. Is it the gun violence? Did this come about from the 22 homicides that we were facing a year or two ago?
Yeah.
Like, so that's what I'm asking, like, what brought about this?
Yeah, I can tell you. it's a-
Action of getting these devices, because the community is gonna wanna know.
Yeah.
So, I'm, you know,
Yeah, so the commissioner and I, Commissioner Muldrow and I, 2 years ago, we took a trip to Atlantic City for a conference. And, you know, Atlantic City Police has these surveillance towers. And then he took a trip to New York. New York City has them all over the place. And so it's a good way to provide that visual deterrence without spending the man hours of deploying an officer, you know, because we can set these things up 24/7. And to put an officer out in a particular problem area at all times is expensive. So it'll help us save some costs and overtime.
I'm just asking because the fact that we just, approved for more officers in the city of York, right?
I mean, we did add
We
the
added
officers via.
so that we can have more officers. And so I guess what I'm thinking is like, when you mentioned that, so that it can be set up stationary, so that it's almost like an officer setting there. So it's, you know,
It can't completely replace an officer, but look, you know, like you cited, we had 22 homicides in 2022. We were down significantly last year. We're trending way down this year.
Yes.
We're nearly, you know, halfway through the year, and you know, knock on wood, our gun violence is, you know, taking a steep decline here. But you know, now's not the time to take our foot off the pedal.
Right.
You
So you
know, like
believe that it'll
we
be-
still need more tools. You know,
Yeah.
and so. You know, we identified this, and this is something we've been eyeing for at least, you know, a year or two now. We were able to finally get some funding for it, and so we're really hoping with your blessing that we can continue to add to the good work that we're doing. Yeah.
thank you.
I'm sorry. Is it okay?
Yes, yes.
I'm Gito. Everybody call me Gito in the community. Again, I'm Brian Gooden, and I go by Gito G's in the community. I'm a community leader, and I'm also a community engagement consultant for some. So the thing is, we talk the CCTV system. A few years back, York City wanted a citywide camera system. You remember that? And York City wasn't able to secure the funding for that. Am I right?
I mean, it's complicated, but.
All right. So, as a community leader and somebody being in the streets, in the communities, there has been almost no police presence or regular patrol in what we consider the hot spots in our community at all. And my question is, since you're the spokesman, do you believe that CCTV and AI technology is best for the York City community patrol over police patrol?
So, I mean, that's a tough question. It depends, okay? You know, AI is, you know, this doesn't have AI necessarily at all. It's just a purely.
That's next.
Huh?
That's next.
Well, it's coming, right? I mean, that's just the way that our future's going here. But I think that you need the officers to use, you know, because the video is only being captured. You still need somebody to go in and monitor it. It's, you know, this isn't because of the data plan, everything. Somebody's not going to be monitoring this thing 24/7. So we're going to set it up, like for the burglary example, if we set it up in where we think maybe one of our target locations is going to occur, right? We think a burglary is going to happen. We set it up, and a burglary happens. Well, now a detective's going to have to go back through, find out exactly what time, and then use it to kind of trace his footsteps, right? So we're not going to have an officer watching this camera 24/7, you know, just because one, it's unrealistic, and two, it's going to eat up all our data.
So I think the key word you said was monitoring. So if nobody's monitoring, then something can happen without the police knowing, right? So if no police presence is in the streets for the last 2 years since they've been denied that funding for CCTV, what would you say the outcome would be for that? If there's no police presence in the communities, what do you say when the police is away?
I don't want to get into it, and I'd be happy to talk to you offline, so correct, stop me if you wish. I don't want to get into a debate, but are you saying that we don't have a police presence?
No, so in the community, for the last 2 years, it's been a decrease of about 80% police presence in the community, specifically the hotspots, Walnut Street, Maple Street, Duke Street, Pine Street, West Philadelphia, East Philadelphia, all the hotspots. It's been almost zero police presence. I'm there all the time. And the community is there. They live there, and they don't see y'all. And so I'm saying, if you saying it's important to be monitoring, why hasn't it been important to monitor or patrol in the last 2 years?
So I'm sorry that you haven't seen our officers. I'd be happy to have a discussion with you after this to figure out how we can do better in that regard. But we're not monitoring, right? We're reviewing after the fact. We're not going to have officers specifically watching these cameras 24/7. That's the beauty of these cameras is we set them, it records. If we have an incident, we go back and review, and that allows our officers to be out more, walking the streets, in vehicle patrols.
But if they're not walking the streets now without the cameras.
Oh, they are.
And they're saying they're dependent on the cameras. Why would they walk the streets with the cameras?
Well, we wouldn't walk necessarily in those same where the cameras are. We might, but it allows us to be someplace else. And so if you feel like an area is being neglected, I'd love to know what areas are being neglected so I can make sure our team, because our guys we do take 30s, we do foot patrols every night. We have neighborhood safety patrols that we have set up.
Okay, so, you said there won't be, an officer monitoring 24/7, but where will the devices be recording 24/7?
Yeah.
Will they be recording, just in case you need to go back for the data?
Correct. It
Okay.
records to a server. It gives us about 30 to 60 days depending on
So 30 to 60 days out of recording,
of
if
the
you would
recording.
need
And
to.
then it starts to overwrite itself. So if we do have an incident, we'll go in and then we'll pull just that snippet, not
Yeah.
not large hours and hours of data.
Right.
We go and grab that 15-minute segment.
Yes.
Because again, it's precious data, so we only pull what's necessary,
Right, and that makes sense,
and then we put that into evidence.
yes. And so that's good to know that I get with, Mr.
Gito.
Gito was saying, about monitoring. So that's why I wanted to ask a question just about the recording, because we were looking into wanting to, support these devices, right? That's what you're asking for.
Yeah.
And so just to make sure that it is doing what it needs to do as far as having that data. If something like a homicide, a robbery, somebody peeing in the alley like you said, or whatever it might be, it could be anything. Someone gets hit by a car, somebody, I don't know. But we have access, or you guys, not me, I don't need access to that, but you guys have the access to be able to go back and to pull that.
Yeah, and just in case you're not aware, but what we've noticed with juries nowadays is that an incident can happen, but the juries might not believe it unless there's video evidence.
Right,
And we
right.
get that because of TV shows and everything like that. And so having the video evidence is so critical to allow us to prove our case. So again, it's just another tool. It's not a replacement, it's just another tool to help us not only make the arrest, but be able to prosecute it, right? Like, 'cause once we make the arrest, the case ain't over. The case is not over. It's our job to provide all the evidence so that way we can secure a conviction. And the video evidence helps us do that.
So how would this help with the privacy of just regular residents that's doing their own thing every day, with this recording taking place and them being, you get what I'm saying?
I don't. Can you kind of elaborate?
The privacy of others. I think when we were talking about the citywide cameras, we were talking about the AI and the face recognition and all that. And so how is this different? How is this different than that? Is
Yeah.
there a difference? And how much do the community know about what we're talking about tonight? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and I understand the concern, but I look at like, are we troubled when we go to like Sunoco or 7-Eleven or Giant? I mean, they have it there for our protection. I feel safer knowing that there's a camera there, that if an incident happens, let's just say like somebody steals my wallet when I'm at Giant, that that they'll be able to go and review the video, find the offender, make the arrest, and maybe even get my money back. So we're just trying to help the community. I understand those concerns about us watching. If anybody has any fears of us looking into windows, like that is not the intent here. It is in public spaces, and that is really it. Yeah.
I would say my own two questions. The first thing was the difference between Giant and I think it's A+, is theirs is not moving. It's not moving all over the city.
You're right.
It is staying in one place, and we are going there for a service. And the second question that I have, and maybe for our Solicitor Flowers, is can we have this device without having any policy in regards to it is my question.
Yeah, so typically the line is whether or not you have an expectation of privacy. And so when this is placed in, it's not going to be placed in a position where it's looking into a fenced off backyard in which somebody would have an expectation of privacy. But if it's in a public space, people typically aren't considered to have an expectation of privacy in a public space. So it's permitted to have that, captured that view at that point. And so the policy for something like this is that, policies are always preferred. And, we can work on getting a policy quickly, but this isn't one where I'm necessarily concerned about because of how obvious they are and the fact that they'd really only be in public spaces.
I would definitely advocate for a policy with this. I know that all of us like to say that we're good people, but sometimes in between good people, there are people that are not so good. And when we're having cameras, there are people that could be surveillancing a significant other's home or workplace or whatever. And people sometimes do things that we wouldn't do. But sometimes they do those things and utilize the resources that they have at their places of employment for personal things that they should not. I definitely believe we need to have a policy for this to make sure, as Solicitor Flowers shared, that there's just some caveats just in there that says that, like she said, you're not looking into someone's backyard unless obviously, as you guys don't, if you're doing the work that you need to do to an investigation or whatever. But that is just not,
Wide open game.
yeah, but I definitely believe that, it can be a benefit to the community, but definitely with some policy. I have a strong concern when we have things with no policies.
Right.
Well, Council President, I assure you that if this moves forward, I will begin drafting that and with the help of the solicitor.
And if I can just jump in one more time. So the concern about accessing police resources for personal use, there is a policy as to
Okay.
that. And that's, I don't know if it's a terminable offense in your matrix, but it's a significant offense. And so that would still cover
Okay,
the
good.
use of this. But I agree,
But we can have one
for
specific for
placement,
this,
yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should move forward with that. That way it kind of clears some things up.
So, when the citywide camera system was going around, I had a real problem with it. I spoke out against it everywhere, really. But I wanted to be clear on what the biggest problem for me was. The biggest problem for me was that that they did a study against Baltimore and Lancaster. Nowhere in Baltimore or Lancaster did it show that a citywide surveillance system reduced crime at all. What it did was it upped convictions. The thing about York County is, in Pennsylvania, we are one out of the top 5 counties in the United States, I think it is, that has the highest conviction or the highest number of residents on probation and parole for nonviolent crimes in this little county. So the thing is, when we talk about creating more of a police state and not a community-based or police maybe patrolled in a way where, you know, but this was a problem for me because okay, it helps you get paid to catch my killer, but he killed me. Is that worth it?
Well, I mean, your life is very valuable, so.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's not reducing crime. So if it's no proactive, y'all not coming up with no proactive ways to reduce crime. Y'all coming up with every proactive way to increase convictions.
I think it would reduce some crime, not all crime, and it just depends. I mean,
It hasn't in any other city that has been used in. The studies show that.
yeah, I'd have to check actually. I mean, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, they did one. York College paid for one.
Okay.
And, right, York College paid for the study.
We did one for GVI. Is that what you're?
Was that for GVI 3 years ago? Was that 3 years ago?
That was from
Yeah.
SafeNet.
SafeNet,
GVI,
right.
that was the SafeNet one that was
SafeNet.
done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from council? No. Any other comments or questions from the public? All right, I make a motion to place this on, well, is there a motion to place this on the June 4th, 2024 legislative agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
You can second it.
Second.
I was going to second it, but do we need the policy first or no?
It's just placed
Okay. Second, I'll second it.
on. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That moves forward. Next up, we have a resolution authorizing the fiscal year 2024 budget transfer for the GBI Incredible Messenger Program in the amount of $50,000. Captain Lentz? Sorry.
Missed it. What was the
Oh,
rest
sorry,
of it?
this
Yeah.
is the 50K for client services out of the Credible Messenger.
Yeah, you might be able to speak more to this than I can.
Well, I can just do the budget-wise is essentially that as part of our ARPA-approved program for GVI Incredible Messengers, number 426, they have several initiatives in there, and they had a budget set aside for $70,000 for other supplies and materials. As we've gone along, it's I'm sure not a new concept, but one that we have been pursuing more, is the idea of client services, which you'll see the next ordinance involves that as well, is that essentially we could have, the client services aspect, Captain Lentz would be able to describe more, but the concept of it, we did run by our ARPA consultants, and they did confirm that that is an allowable use, and they gave us kind of guidelines on how to address it. But on my end, budget-wise, we could have been putting requisitions for this through under other supplies and materials, but now that it's kind of a pattern of a concept, I wanted to dedicate a specific new expense line for it. So that's why the budget is coming through, because yeah, we could have just kept going under other supplies and materials and no one would, but I also can't keep track of it then. And we can't budget for it in the future. So that's why I'm bringing it before you, but describing what those client services are, because it's also relevant to the next ordinance that's coming up. I think Captain Lentz would be able to do that.
Yeah, these items, I mean, they're really hard to kind of just throw out there, but I can tell you some of the things that we've purchased, or used these funds for are just something as simple as maybe like an alarm clock or diapers for GMI members, our group members, who are involved in group violence, but they want to get out of that lifestyle, but need some assistance, even hotel expenses just to kind of get out of the area, or even relocation assistance. We've actually relocated some individuals to different states using some of these funds to kind of help them, escape this lifestyle and have a better life. So that's really why we're just trying to separate those funds. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any, thank you, Business Administrator Robertson. Is there any comments from anyone on council, or any questions?
I do have a question. The GVA program's been going on for a few years.
Since 2016.
Is there a financial report for how much, can anybody speak to how much was spent on GVI in 2023? Do we have numbers associated with the expense specifically related to GVI in 2023?
Off the top of my head, no, but I can certainly circle back with you.
Okay, because I would like to then be able to know if this reallocation is in line with the planned spending for 2024.
Yeah. The thing about it, though, is it's just completely unpredictable. You know, we never know who's going to come up needing our services. You know, we have, Tiff Lowe and her team, they're out there doing some great work, reaching out to these individuals. Whether or not they want to accept the help is entirely up to them. So it's really hard to budget, which is kind of where we just kind of, this 50,000 was just kind of an arbitrary number. We may not spend it all. We may spend all of it. I can't tell you, but I can certainly go back and I can send you an email if you prefer.
Thanks.
From 2023 numbers.
That's fine, yes, it kind of ties into, for me, we have done a lot of allocating of ARPA funds, and I would like to see more of whether those allocations have been spent. And I don't know the answer to that. I've looked on the ARPA dashboard, but is a very small percentage of the total that has been spent, and so I'm just trying to get a sense of.
Sure. And not all of what we've spent has specifically come from ARPA, because we have some other
Right.
funding sources too. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Just real quick, I want to note that this is already budgeted, as part of what was approved for the total GVI Incredible Messenger program. We're just moving it from one bucket to the other. The other thing to keep in mind is that this is the '24 budget, so there's $50K allocated to this, but what isn't used this year will be included in the '25 budget. So say they've come up with, good reasons to spend $20,000 of it in order to help people change their lives. There's $30,000 left. That, you'll see a same line item for 2025 with the $30,000 in it. So it's not going to be like another 50. This is all we have to spend between now and the end of 2025.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from anyone on council? Any comments from the public regarding this matter? Is there a motion to place this on our June 4th, 2024 legislative agenda?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? That moves forward to be placed on our June 4th, 2024 legislative agenda. Next up, we have a bill amending the fiscal year '24 budget for GBI Grassroots Growth Initiative Grant from York College in the amount of $10,000. You're up next.
Yeah. So this is essentially the same type of expenditures, like just your college is providing us $10,000 in a grant to help with the mission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from anyone on council?
None.
No.
I just want to say congratulations on
Yes.
receiving the grant award.
Congratulations.
Any comments or questions from the public regarding this matter? Okay, I make a motion to place this on the June 4th, 2024 legislative agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that moves forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll be moving along to our business administration, over to Council Vice President Buckingham, our chair.
Thank you. Our first item is a resolution authorizing agreements with AMCS and the school district of the City of York for crossing guards.
Yep, this is a yearly occurrence, so this is, and actually well-timed this year. Sometimes we're not so timed on it to make sure that we have this all in place in advance of the new school year. So this is a dual deal. Essentially, per ordinance and third-class city code and second-class school district code, essentially the city is responsible for providing crossing guards for the school district, and it actually comes through the police department. So in the past, when I first started in HR, part of my deal was just and the supervision of the crossing guards that we had on staff. As the years went by, we had a very hard time filling those positions and keeping them staffed. So the decision was made, hey, let's see if we can, there's actually companies that this is what they do, is that they hire, train, and supervise crossing guards to be provided for school districts. So I believe we've been using All City Management for, All City Management Service, yes, for at least since 2016, if not before. So this is just a renewal on their contract. As part of that, we've had a longstanding renewal of an agreement with the city, York City School District, that they pay for, they reimburse us for 50% of the cost of the crossing guard service. So dual deal. I've already sent this to the school district. They've blessed it for their solicitor. They're going to have it on their next meeting agenda. We have it on ours in order to get approval for signatures. At the same time, we're approving the contract with All City Management so that we will have crossing guards effective the new year.
I do have one comment, or does anybody on council have any comments?
I just had some questions. I'm new to this. So this company's out of California. So how does the hiring process work in York if the company we're contracting with is in California?
They have individuals that are local to the region who are responsible for the management and supervision of the local municipalities that they have crossing guards in. So they're based out of California, but they have divisional employees that are in the area that do the hiring and the supervision.
Is that, so where in this area do you?
I don't know specifically where they're located. They very well may be remote and then come out and do the work they need to do with the municipalities when needed.
Okay. 2835, and they said they had to increase it because they've had to really increase the pay. What's the markup per, hour per crossing guard? We're not paying, yep. That's what I saw, $28.35 an hour per guard, for a total of 647 some and change K a year. I know we used a lot of temps, local temps, where I worked last, and the markup was only a couple bucks per hour. And I'm thinking, we're not paying over $20 an hour for crossing guards. Is there a better local solution to this staffing problem? 'Cause I believe it's a headache, probably, finding crossing guards and keeping them. Kind of like, finding bus drivers for some school districts. But, I think it's a reasonable question to ask, what is the markup on this? How much of this is going to the crossing guards working?
If it's not mentioned in the contract, that's up to them to present us with a total per crossing guard that takes into account how much they're paying them and all their overhead expenses associated with them. So that's just part of the deal. I'm not aware of what they're paying their crossing guards for, but I can mention that in the past, we actually worked with Community Progress Council, which was Barry Freeland knocked on my door today because he was in a meeting on behalf of the Christmas Addicts with our HR department about their summer program that they have. And I was like, well, hello, Barry. And I used to work with him at the CPC because he ran the senior program there. And they supervised, we actually had an agreement with them that we brought them on as our employees, but they did the supervision and the hiring. It was complicated. And it really was to the point that we were even working with them and we were having difficulties filling the positions. Now, I will say that going into the next year, because of these continued increased costs, is that I am going to propose doing an RFP for next year because we've done it for a couple years with them. Let's see what our other options are. But we don't have the time this year in order to do it. So that's going to be on the agenda for next year for the 2025-26 school year.
We're going to hold you to it.
Okay.
That just seems like an awful lot, and especially when we don't have a breakdown. I know when, the local temp agency who did staffing for us, I knew the breakdown. I knew what that overhead was that was, provided to us, and I think that's important for us to know. We knew how much the worker was making. Because we're paying for it all.
The other thing to keep in mind is the difference to a temp. A temp, you bring them in and you supervise them. they're not coming in, they're coming in and doing the work that is required, but they are also providing the supervision of the crossing guards. They deal with all the complaints. I know I had a couple calls and emails from folks from the school district, specifically for a school, and I just gave them the district manager's contact information and said, please, if this doesn't get resolved, let me know. And I have not heard back from them. So I'm assuming at that point that resolution was made. So they handle a lot for us as opposed to somebody internally doing it. But I'm not opposed to a local agency taking it over if they think they can be successful. And they're able to present a cost savings for us. I'm sure the school district would appreciate that as well.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm also assuming then they assume the liability as well,
Oh, yes.
which is huge,
And
in my opinion.
I have years and years of stories of issues with crossing guards, even discipline issues that could have led to liability concerns and workers' comp. We had, there's always the possibility of them tripping over something on the curbs or getting hit by a car, anything of the sort, that we would have that responsibility. So they do take on all of that.
And you answered one of my questions because actually, I see a crossing guard who stops traffic all the time. And that's not a good thing. Because then our children think that they can just walk out. It's not a
noticed
safety
that too.
issue. So that would go to AMCS.
Yes, I will send me the details and I'll reach out to them, or
Yep.
I can give them the contact. Because yes, that's one of the biggest things, because we used to had to do an orientation and the police department was involved. And that was the biggest thing, is that you're just guiding people through the natural light cycles. Now, there were certain situations like, Broad and King, where there's a four-way stop. Now, that was always more challenging to have somebody in there that is not messing up the flow, but also making sure they're safe. But that's definitely for the light cycles. They're supposed to follow them, and they're supposed to make them, hey, tell them the wait, and then just use it. You're looking for left turns, you're looking for right and turns coming through. That's what you're really trying to help with. I agree.
Any other questions or comments from council? Any questions or comments from the public? May I have a motion to place this on the, I don't have the schedule, but is it the
6-4.
6-4 agenda?
I'll move to place it on the legislative agenda for June 4th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And that will be on our agenda next week.
All in favor, say yes.
Oh, excuse me. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Our next item is a resolution authorizing a budget transfer for a budget shift for the Pennsylvania Department of Health Act 315 and Act 12 for $97,953 for the Health Bureau. Sure.
Monica Kruger, York City Bureau of Health. Basically, the first item here is we receive Act 315 and Act 12 funds. And when we originally budgeted, we had budgeted salaries allocated there. So what you see there is a transfer of funds from salaries to other line items because we, at the time, did not know that some of the COVID funding we had was going to roll over, which would then encompass those salaries that we had moved to these two other funds. Any questions about that?
Any questions from council? Any questions from the public? May I have a motion to place this on the June 4th legislative agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That will appear on our June 4th legislative agenda. The next item is a resolution authorizing various agreements for the Health Bureau.
Basically, this is just so that we can get approval for signatures once we have all those agreements in hand.
Do we have any questions or comments from council?
I do. I believe that the resolution has blanks in it. So
does.
I'll need that information by tomorrow.
Right. I think originally an amount had been put in there. I don't have the final.
It's
I can-
always been
yeah.
blank
Oh.
from the first time it was sent to me.
Okay,
It was
sure, I can
pulled off
send
the agenda, I believe, or asked not to go on because you didn't have the
Okay.
funding, I think it was,
Right.
or didn't know the funding at the time. And so that was pulled, but then the
Okay.
bill was put on. But this
Sure.
resolution never had the amounts in it, so
Okay.
I'll need that like
Okay.
ASAP.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
By
Thank you.
tomorrow
I can do,
noon?
yep, I can do that right now.
Okay, good.
No problem.
And the last item also,
We need to, did we
Oh,
already
excuse me.
do? We didn't do that one
we
yet.
didn't do that one,
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
even see, when I open it, I don't even have anything. It's like I don't have a
So-
resolution to read.
So the various agreements,
Oh, you might be on an old, are you on an old one? Here's the packet right here if you want to see it. Oh, yeah, because it shows up on yours, correct?
Yeah,
You
it
must have
does.
because I sent out an updated agenda, so you might have a broken link. But here's the, here it is right here if she wants to look at it.
do I have a motion to place this on the June 4th legislative agenda?
So moved?
Second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That will be on the June 4th legislative agenda. And the last item is a bill amending the fiscal year 2024 budget for health.
So I don't know if you want me to go through all these, but it's really thoroughly outlined in the ordinance there. I
Sure is.
guess if there's any specific questions, I'll answer them. I don't think you need me to read all that, but I'm happy to do so if you'd like.
Monica, just to clarify, this is, again, like she said, in terms of the last one where we were essentially shift the purpose of the funds that we were receiving from, my buckets, one expense bucket to another, it zeroed out that there was no change. These are a collection of various grants that there are similar changes in terms of shifting from one to the other, and it's also representing, they always seem to have, when they budget initially for a grant, the closeout for the previous year is not done yet, so then we always get to about this point in the year, which actually, we're good timing, This is the one that we're always like, oh, we need it before the summer. And so this was excellent that we're always anticipate this time of year, these adjustments so that we can prepare for the second half of the budget, which also ends up being like the beginning of a new grant year for the majority of their programs.
And just to add to that, the majority of our funding is on a fiscal year, not a calendar year. So we always have these, as Kim said, one of these items too is what happens is one of our funders, Family Health Council of Central Pennsylvania, at the end of their year, they go back and they look and they allocate extra funding or funding based on what we've been able to accomplish or how many patients we've seen. So it's just a whole mixture of things in there. So we try to anticipate without having to come back again anticipating the continuation of one of our programs, the personal responsibility education program called PrEP, which is basically a healthy relationships, sexual awareness program that we do at the high school. So we're anticipating those funds to come in, but they come in, it's not a typical grant cycle. So we're just trying to make sure we get our ducks in a row so we can spend the money when we're ready to spend it.
Thank you. I think I remember a couple years ago that we did have to have a very brief but special meeting in the summer so that you could
We
move
try to
forward.
avoid that sometimes.
This
and,
looks great. Yep. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from council? Any from the public? Do I have a motion to put this ordinance on the?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that wraps up for business administration.
Thank you, Vice President Buckingham. Now we will move along. Do we have any council comment this evening?
Just want to celebrate the class of 2024 graduates from all over the world, but especially with our inner city youth, because we are the city council. So with our York City School District, I want to give homage to them. They had over a 90% rate this year. So I want to give them a big shout out and say, let's get prepared for the 2024-2025 school year. So we did an excellent job this year.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any comment from the administration?
Only that I'm excited to see all your laptops up there.
Well,
I missed that part.
well,
Are they working? Say, I'm stopping.
You're welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for making it happen.
Baby
thank
steps,
you, thank you.
okay?
Yes.
We're baby steps around here. They're there. I didn't say up and running.
Thank you, thank you.
Our next committee meeting, council will observe its summer recess after the June 4th, 2024 legislative meeting. No committee meetings are held during the months of June, July, and August. Our next committee meeting will be held on September 25th, 2024, here in council chambers, and all committee agenda items are due by 12 noon on September the 18th, 2024. At this time, we have public comment this evening, and I received from Mr. Brian Gooden.
Firstly, I would like to give each one of y'all one of these packets, just in case we don't get to discuss all the information today, or however.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Well, I sure hope we don't discuss all these.
That's a lot you got to say right there, Brian. You can sum this up
In 5 minutes?
In 5 minutes?
I know. So that's why I gave y'all the extended version,
Okay.
and I have a summary.
Good job, right.
So first of all, good evening. I'm Brian Gooden. And today we addressing barriers and discrimination against, and discrimination and business regulations in York City, particularly with food trucks. First, I want to start by saying that food trucks offer economic opportunities and cultural diversity, especially for minority communities. Mobile food businesses actually ranks #1 as the startup business for Latin and African American communities, which we are over 70% in York City. However, current regulations in York City, Pennsylvania hinder their growth and contribution to the community. In ways of cultural and economic benefits, so the lack of cultural representation, food trucks provide authentic Latin and African American cuisines, enhancing cultural diversity. Economic growth, food trucks contribute to community engagement. Food trucks serve as a social hub and foster neighborhood cohesion. Tourism boosts, revitalization of underserved areas. They help to revive neighborhoods by offering accessible dining options. The disadvantages of restrictive regulations is missed opportunities, limited culinary diversity, community dissatisfaction. Residents value diverse food choices and entrepreneurship opportunities. Then is the financial burden, like the impact on high insurance requirements. York City adopted a regulation that would make the insurance requirement double the normal for any area or city alike for an insurance policy for food vendors. So excessive insurance requirements discourage new businesses with York City placing double or more of the industry norm for startup mobile food vendors. the challenges for professional kitchens, resource disparities. These requirements favor established businesses, creating barriers for new entrepreneurs who don't have the capital or already own a professional kitchen. So if you're a new food vendor or want to start a food cart or truck in York City, you have to have access for professional commissary, meaning you have to have a restaurant. And that's very prohibitive for startup food vendors, especially minority-owned startup businesses. Inspection and licensing bottlenecks, delays and inconsistencies. We have one inspector, health inspector, for the city of York, who is solely is on her approval that food vendors are approved. That leave a lot of room for a lot of different things, like you said earlier. There's a lot of good people in us, but some of us sometimes don't do what's right. So the thing is, limited inspectors cause significant delays impacting food truck operations. The economic impact, delays hurt small and minority-owned businesses. Unequal treatment and opportunities. Exclusive privileges. Favoring brick-and-mortar restaurants over food trucks create disparities and limits competition. Perceived inequity. Such policies may be seen as biased or discriminatory against minority-owned businesses. Like one of the regulations is, if you have a food vending service or mobile food vending, you cannot have as much as a sign outside of your food truck on public right ways or alleyways or any public property. However, the city approves for an entire street, which is George Street, the middle of the city, to be shut down to put outside for businesses to be able to put chairs and music and everything in the middle of George Street, the busiest street in York. So revocation and reapplication barriers, the financial and operational burdens. So if for some reason, and one rule is if it's three nuisances for any mobile food vendor, that their application gets revoked. And if it gets revoked, is no refund. You have to reapply and repay the full amount. That's awful for small businesses, especially minority-owned businesses who already suffering and do not have access to certain resources or capital. So my question for the council is, in 2015, these regulations was put in place. What measures were introduced in 2015 to ensure equitable opportunities for all? And what initiatives have been implemented since to support minority-owned startups, especially given the restrictive regulations on the #1 startup business for more than 70% of our community, and that being with just mobile food vending alone. So what I'm saying is, what was the fair or equal trade to restrict 70% of small businesses to favor a small group called the downtown restauranteurs? What was the fair or equal trade? That's my question to council.
Yeah, well, I would say thank you for your comments. Normally, when someone comes for a comment for council,
Oh, okay.
we provide things to the administration, so it's normally not a dialogue back and
Oh,
forth.
okay.
But what we will do is definitely take the information that you've given us and definitely share it with the administration. I know there have been some things that have been put in place to assist our minority and women small businesses here in the city of York, but definitely so that our administration can speak more to the law and more to the ordinances and more to what they do day to day in regards to the food trucks. Because when you come asking certain questions, we're not as prepared as you because you already did your research.
So-
We don't know what you're coming to talk about. So it's not saying that we are not going to look into what you shared with us today. It's not saying that we're not going to get back in touch with you or anything like that, but this is a matter for the administration.
Okay.
And that's where they come in and step in. And so we
And-
pass it on to the administration for them to reach out to you. You've given us your email address and your phone number.
Right.
For them to get back in contact with you. And if you don't hear anything, that's when you come and get in contact with me. You know how to reach me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know where I am.
And that's really what this is. It's more like a call to action to just ask the council to reconsider and revise current regulations to support minority entrepreneurship and inclusive economic development by implementing supportive measures and adjusting restrictive policies. We can foster a fair and vibrant business environment for all. We just don't have to exclude majority to benefit a small percentage. That's probably not from our community. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you for your
Thank you for your
comments.
time.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Okay, it is 7:11 p.m. and our committee meeting is adjourned. Everyone have a phenomenal evening and rest of the week.